Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6:32. We have all of us here present physically. We have Nick Filoni, Dana Powers, Ted Gergen, Jack Nicolai, and Steve Brown. Nobody's absent. Administration here, we have Connie. I'm sure there's others on the phone. Nope, not for this one. Okay, we'll see them soon. Nobody's remote, and visitors, we won't have either. Motion on the agenda, please.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, we're going into closed. Nick?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
And Dana, aye. And we are now oh my gosh.
You gotta read the thing.
Slow down.
I motion, Madam President, that we go into closed session according to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, which, if discussed in person, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations. We will also look at open enrollment applications for 2021-2022, and also pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and these will deal with several leave of absence requests.
I do want to clarify, you wouldn't typically go into closed session to approve open enrollment applications. However, because we do have enrollment limits established for special education students, it does then become a topic for a closed session hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Nick?
Aye. Go.
Nick?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
And Steve?
Aye, Madam President.
Dana, aye. We are now in closed. We'll see you guys. Hello, we are back and we are in open and we have a couple motions.
Yes. I motion tonight to deny open enrollment applications for the 2021-2022 school year due to space limitations and special education programming as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
All right. And then I motion to approve remaining open enrollment applications for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
I move to approve the 1-year leave of absence for Melissa Paul, grade level teacher, due to family reasons for the 2021-22 school year and return for the 22-23 school year provided enrollment allows.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
I move to approve the 1-year leave of absence for Hannah Horrocks, physical education teacher, due to family reasons for the 2021-22 school year and return for the 22-23 school year provided enrollment allows.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. We are adjourning from this session. I move to adjourn at 6:58 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and we are adjourned, and we will be, and then, right, we can go right into it again. Okay. Now, I call this meeting to order. It is still 6:58, we're a tad early. Okay, we have all of us still here, board members present, Nick Poloni, myself, Dana Powers, Ted Gergen, Jack Nicolai, and Steve Brown. None of us are remote, none of us are absent. We have administration present. We have Connie Valenza and Marquez Guzman, nailed it. And then do we have, and then administration present on the phone. Do I have everyone?
Yes.
Judy Marchkowski, Brian Sandberg, and Patty Fitzgerald on the phone. Okay, and then if there are visitors, please make sure that you've signed in and stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion on the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. President's report. Okay, so I either received no communication or communication that you guys were fine with your committees. So we're going to leave as is, a slight variation only because I see some of the chairs are off. So for buildings and grounds, Jack, you'll be chair, Nick, co-chair or member or whatever we call that. What is it? Co-chair?
You're Robin.
Robin, got it. Education review, we have Ted chair, Steve co-chair, we'll do that. Finance, we have Nick as chair, Ted as co-chair. Personnel, Dana as chair, Ted as co-chair. And then policy and community relations, Steve chair, Jack co-chair, and then we have technology, which is Nick. So, does all sound good?
That will be on the site updated,
The site,
the
like the
website,
website?
webpage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Diane's all over
Diane
it.
says yes.
Yeah, she's absolutely on it. CISA 2 convention representative, is that what Steve, okay. I nominate Steve.
I second that nomination.
Oh, super. Do you accept that nomination? Awesome. Okay, so are you cool with being our chair for that then? We don't need a vote, right?
Sure.
He's just, awesome.
And I'll be there anyway for the Board of Control meeting just after that, so works out. And it's virtual.
Super.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, staff farewell and retirement recognition is gonna be June 4th at 2 p.m. if you guys are available. I am still figuring out my schedule, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna be there yet. If I'm not, hypothetically speaking, I'm not able to. Does anybody want to represent? on my
I am
behalf?
also not available. that
I plan to be there, but I don't know who else does.
I plan on it, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay,
It's if my
No,
schedule
no,
allows.
I'll be there. Carol's
Okay.
retiring, I'll be there.
okay.
So just
So you two will be there.
let me know for sure. I've already got 2 confirmed. Nick, if you'd let me know, because I'll have to post if you're going to be there. So,
Well, if,
You wanna
Okay.
just post anyway, just in case?
yep, I can do that. We can do that.
Sure.
Okay. Right. So just speaking of retirements, I did want to just mention who we have retiring and that we'll be honoring at that. So we have Sandy Kamara, who will be leaving us after 28 years. I had their first yearbook picture and then their most recent yearbook picture up.
Awesome.
Then we have Karen Van Hersley. You'll be approving her retirement this evening. 45 years. You can see her first and her latest yearbook. And then we have Carol Moore with 17 years to Salem School in her first and most recent yearbook picture. Right, so for a student spotlight, I don't know how aware you are. I just recently found out that we actually have a school song for Salem School. And Mrs. Stanik's first grade classroom is going to be sharing that with you. So if ever there was a school year to cheer for, we felt that this was the year. So
Absolutely.
we thought it was important that we shared that as we're winding down a full year of in-school session or in-session school.
That's great.
Again. Then moving on to the clerk's report.
I have no specific items that came in, other than just what Dana had talked about with regards to the convention, the CISA convention that'll take place in June. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
And by the way, that did come from our new state superintendent, Carolyn Stanford Taylor, or the current. Sorry, the current, because the incoming. When did she take office?
July 1.
July 1. Okay, which is unusual.
I think it's in line with the school.
Is it? Okay.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
All right, let's take a look at the treasurer's report. I'd like to present the treasurer's report dated April 2021. So we have a general fund cash account with a balance of $53,832.48. Credit cards with a balance of $2,773.53. EBC Flex and HRA cash account with a balance of $8,764.05. Capital Improvement Fund with a balance of $413,598.60. Petty cash, like Jack said, it's still the same $400 that's been in that petty cash box for the last.
So dusty.
And LGIP.
Money.
The LGIP account with a balance of $3,340,315.33 for a grand asset total for April 2021 of $3,819,683.99. I'd like to move to approve the treasurer's report dated April 2021 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
Any questions at all about that? All right.
I guess I'll just point out that we do keep a significant amount of our money in the LJP account versus our community state bank, the general fund cash account, just because it has a higher interest rate, and then we do periodic transfers. So I actually did a transfer the day after the month closed, so it was getting kind of low there, but I transferred it over the beginning of May.
All right, and we will take a look at the payment of accounts payable bills. I'd like to present the payment of account payable bills from 3/12/21 through 4/23/21. That would include checks numbered 70178 through 70232 and 202000663 through 202000838 for a total of checks $517,547.94.
Please tell us that we get some sort of kickback from Amazon.
So yeah, we have an Amazon business account, so we're already getting, I guess, the lowest price per se, and then we do use our credit card to purchase through Amazon, so we do get the cash back or the rewards to the credit card. So
That's awesome.
Now, I have a question about, it's more or less because the Eckhart, not the, have they been more responsive?
yes, so this should be the last time you'll see it in bulk, because by the time we got them the memo and it was communicated to them, they were still kind of holding on to those invoices, but moving forward, they will get us at the latest on a monthly basis, whereas I think before it was still quarterly. So moving forward, we shouldn't have like a pile of Eckhart invoices just thrown on us at the end of the quarter.
Sure. And then my other question would be perhaps, would it be advantageous to get one of our maintenance individuals certified in boiler and repair and or electronic or for electrical work too? Because I mean, for a school this size, there's an awful lot of need for that. So I'm not dismaying the idea of how many charges are, because I understand how big the school is. However, with being a big school, is it more advantageous for us to get someone certified in our maintenance staff rather than use a third-party provider?
I think it bears some looking into. I think, I guess the question would be, what would that take and what level? So in other words, if this is it's a level of work that needs to be done by someone who goes through the apprenticeship and journeyman and all of those type of stages, it may be an extensive process. And the cost then, once you have somebody with that level of certification, you'd be paying them at that level regardless of whether they were doing that work or not. So the question would be, what would that take? But certainly it bears looking into.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to also point out that a lot of these custodial positions, these jobs are pretty full. These guys are working all the time. And if we were to come up against some sort of a big problem that would pull one or two of the guys off of their regular duties, it could be a real drain on the rest of the system. A lot of times outsourcing something like that's the best way to go. Just get the pros in here when you need them and pay them what they're worth, and allow the guys who we hire full-time to do the jobs that we hire them to do. Little repairs, maybe, little things, but I don't know. I've talked to custodians about this in the past. You have the certification of air conditioning and the rest of it. You spend much time up on the roof. He said, well, they're pretty busy cleaning the bathrooms and sweeping the halls. So.
And there's a level of things that are, so we do have two designations. One is a maintenance and one is custodial. So the maintenance is a higher paying position.
Sure.
They have more maintenance type skills to do kind of routine lower level maintenances. So like changing out belts and things like that you would do that you wouldn't necessarily have to bring someone from the outside to do. Sure. The question is on some of the other things. And again, a lot depends in my mind in terms of what it would take to do that. And then what is the typical going rate for someone like that on an annual basis? Because then, is it, how often are we using it? Are we using it once a week? Are we using it, and that's, I think, where the question comes in terms of, is it worthwhile to do that? But it certainly, again, bears some looking into. I know, for example, Justin has gone back and gotten some different certifications and that to be able to do some of the work that we have.
Sure. It's more or less, yeah, because there's, if you look at some of the charges for what was the problem, it's very maintenance, it could be maintenance driven. So that's where the thought process came through. Obviously, with major repairs, they have the equipment, to get that done too, because there's tools that you have invested in certain situations as well. But just looking, just a thought,
Jumping back to Amazon too, you probably will know that there's a lot of Amazon purchases this month. We had our purchasing deadline for classroom teachers and most school staff, so everybody's trying to get those end of the year purchases in, and Amazon seems to be, one of the you get big selection, and the prices are pretty good.
I love the Zon.
A lot of the stuff too is local, easy to come by. Sometimes you'll order things online that look good and they're coming from China. You never know
Exactly.
when you're gonna get them. Amazon's pretty fast.
All right, I move to approve the payment of accounts payable bills from April 24th through May 20th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
We have the minutes of the regular school board meeting of 4/27/2021 as printed or amended.
Motion to approve the minutes of the regular school board meeting dated 4/27/2021 as printed and or amended.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries. Public comments. We have not received any public comments. If you do so wish, please follow the rules we have in place. Happy to hear from you.
We have the first action item this evening is a retirement request from Karen Van Hersley. 45 years. We did some checking. She is the longest serving staff member on record for Salem Schools. She's served in the role of teacher assistant. She's do our substitute calling and working through all of that. And then she also was in charge of our detention room back in the day. The recommendation would be to express thanks for her years of service to Salem School District and accept Mrs. Karen Van Hersley's retirement request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
I move to express thanks to Mrs. Van Hersley for her years of service at Salem School District and accept her retirement request effective the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
We have a resignation from Mrs. Megan Smith. She's been with Salem for 5 years as a speech and language pathologist. I believe she's moving closer to family. The recommendation would be to accept Mrs. Megan Smith's resignation request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
I motion to accept Mrs. Megan Smith's resignation request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
We have a resignation from Mrs. Jamie Canow. She's been with Salem for 4 years as a music choir teacher. The recommendation would be to accept Mrs. Canow's resignation request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
I move to accept Mrs. Jamie Canow's resignation request effective at the end of the 2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Then we have Ms. Alyssa Santiago. She's been with Salem for 1 year as a special education teacher in the 5th grade. The recommendation would be to accept her resignation request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Motion to accept Alyssa Santiago's resignation request effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
So on the other end of the spectrum, we have some hires. We have a new hire for an ESL foreign language teacher. We were a little concerned about whether we would find a quality candidate, and we were really lucky to do that. If you remember, this year we were doing Spanish virtually. We'd like to go back to teaching Spanish in the classroom. So we have Miriam Antaramian Rafalski. Antaramian.
Yeah.
She has a Master's of Science in Curriculum and Instruction from Concordia University and a Bachelor of Arts in Spanish with a minor in math from UW Parkside. She has a lifetime license in Spanish, alternative education, English language learners, and mathematics. She actually is EMT licensed. We thought that that would be kind of cool to have as part of our response team. She has 10 years of experience as a teacher in the districts of Palmyra Eagle, Fond du Lac, and Trevor-Wilmot, and even did a stint as a youth development coordinator in Alaska. The recommendation would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-22 school year of not less than $60,300.
A motion to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-2022 school year of not less than $60,300.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
This is a name that you will recall, so it will seem a little odd approving her for a hire. It would be Lisa Anderson. Earlier this evening, you approved a resignation for a speech and language pathologist. She has a educational specialist, Master of Science in Education. Actually, I don't think that's accurate. I think that was a holdover from another candidate. So strike that first line. She began, though, with the Antioch School District in 2004 and was then hired by CESA 2 and then by the Paris School District. Paris shared Lisa Anderson's contract with the Salem School District for the last 5 years, so she's worked with both districts. In this situation, the Salem School District would reduce speech and language pathologist positions from 2.5 FTE down to actually 2 FTE for the 2021-22 school year. Judith Marachkowski, our Pupil Services Director, feels that that's an appropriate level of staffing. The recommendation would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-22 school year of not less than $75,100.
A motion to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-2022 school year of not less than $75,100.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
And then we have a new hire for a music teacher. This is not for the position that we just approved this evening. This was for Carol Moore's position. Michael Walker has a BA in music education with an emphasis in vocal from Carthage College. 2 years of school experience as a general music choral director at McNeil Intermediate School in Beloit. However, also did practicums in student teaching at Westosha Central, Bristol Elementary, and B.J. Hooper Elementary. The recommendation would be to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-22 school year of not less than $45,300.
I move to approve a 1.0 FTE contract for the 2021-22 school year of not less than $45,300.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
So we have, pick up all of that. So one of the action items we have on the agenda this evening is for the summer school safety protocols. I did just kind of put where Kenosha County is, their risk category status, and you can see it's down fairly significantly. I had another visual that just didn't pop up, but it's got that heat map. And if you recall in the heat map, the more red it is in an area, the kind of higher incidence, and then the greener it is. And actually things have cooled down quite a bit in Paddock Lake. So there's definitely a decrease in infections there. Oh, there you go. It's popping up. So you can see if you look at kind of that Paddock Lake, definitely a lot cooler than it was the last time we looked at it. So I met with my administrative team and we talked about kind of what we were thinking going into summer school. This is not where we're at for next fall. We would respectfully like to hold off until July sometime to make a decision or a recommendation as it relates to next fall. But we did want to make a recommendation for summer school because that does start up pretty quick here after the school year ends. What we are recommending is that students attending summer school will bring a mask with them to their sessions. Masks would be voluntary when walking in halls, outside, or working in classrooms at least 3 feet apart. Masks or a face shield would be required when participating in indoor partner activities or small group activities without a desk shield. So in other words, if they're working close together in a partner type activity, that's when they would have that mask that we're asking them to bring with and would put on. We would continue with temperature checks for students when entering so that because not all students may be wearing masks anymore, we would want to try and catch if somebody did have a fever, for example. We'll be recommending that unvaccinated staff will continue with entry protocol, meaning the temperature check and the sheet. The assumption, because we're not going to mandate that they give us that information, the assumption will be that staff is unvaccinated unless employees choose to show documented vaccination status. So in other words, with our staff that have chosen to show vaccinated status, they wouldn't have to go through the temperature check or the checkoff sheet in the morning anymore. Again, this is the recommendation that we're making. All staff will continue wearing masks indoors when working in close proximity to other adults or students, because we do know that our students will not be vaccinated, the vast majority of them, and we don't have any way, we're not requiring our staff to be vaccinated at this point. All adult visitors will be expected to wear a mask while in the building and in proximity to other adults or students. It might be a different scenario. For example, if you have somebody working on the elevator and there's no other employees or students around, that would be based on what their employment protocol would be. So the recommendation would be to accept the administrative team recommendations related to summer school safety protocol or some variation thereof. I'm just sharing with you what we felt we would be comfortable with as a team. I know that Ryan has also talked with the teachers to make sure that this type of a recommendation would not be something that would cause them to not want to teach summer school. So we believe that this is an appropriate recommendation that we're making at this point for summer school only.
I like the wording of the third bullet point where it talks about visitors wearing the mask while in the building and in proximity to other adults or students. So they don't really have to wear it all the time, but when they're close to others, yes, mask it.
So,
You know, I'm wondering if at some point, maybe when we're at our retreat, whenever that will be, that we can talk about that in terms of our board meetings. As far as school board members wearing masks, if we're vaccinated and we have the shield here and we have social distancing here. I'm just mentioning that.
Good point.
I mean, in my mind, if we approve this for summer school, my mindset would be that if we are vaccinated and we approve this, I don't know how much discussion there would be in that particular situation. I'd feel that personally, if we approve this and we're vaccinated, you know, in this particular setting, we'd be appropriate to remove our masks.
I would agree, but I just wanted to mention that because we have not really talked about that as far as board meetings.
I think it makes sense because if you recall, the board did approve continuing the mask mandate through the remainder of the school year. And so at the point where we would look at doing something different.
Okay.
Connie, is that, Marquez, is your team just collecting people's, like, information that they've been vaccinated and verifying? It's not something that they're gonna have to show every single day as they walk through the door, right?
No. So we have not collected vaccination status at this point, and we would not require. I mean,
I'm talking
unless
about for
got
that first bullet point there.
Yep. So at that point, if a staff member wanted to not continue doing the sheets or doing the temperature check every morning, then they would have to give us that vaccination status.
Just once though, not like
Yep.
every time as
No,
they walk in the door,
just
right?
once.
Yeah.
Yep. And then after, again, though, making it a choice so that they don't have to. It would only be if they want to not go through that protocol. Because remember, the protocol does the temperature check and asks them, have you been around this within 6 months or 6 days or whatever? I can't remember what it is. But there's all the questions that you have to answer every day.
I think something also that's maybe not in here that maybe you discuss is the quarantining of students or staff.
Yep.
If staff have been vaccinated, then the right now the CDC's recommendation would be that they're not quarantined.
So we have not been quarantining our staff that has been vaccinated. We've definitely moved back in terms of how many students we quarantine. Again, looking to see, early on, we would do a full class quarantine, mainly because the students were in there for the entire day. But as we move forward, especially with our older kids where we're able to make sure they're not circulating, we've reduced to just kind of within that maybe 6 feet, area. So we've definitely pulled back somewhat, although at this point, going into summer school, we would probably continue in those quarantine protocols, but we have not quarantined our teaching staff.
Are we looking at 6 feet still, or I know you?
So we moved
Before
in,
you had 3
CDC
feet.
has kind of moved into in classrooms about 3 to 4 feet. And so that's what we're kind of looking at. But when we do quarantine, we typically look at the 6 feet.
I've also seen information out recently about the changes in the quarantine protocol, saying we're not going to quarantine an entire class anymore.
Correct.
We're going to quarantine the individuals and, continue to move forward. That was a very, very hard thing to do this last year. That to pull an
And
entire
we
class out.
by the end of the year, we pretty much moved away from doing that. And mainly because we did not have cases of where kids who were in that classroom then tested positive. At first, I think there was a lot more concern about that. But we've definitely moved in the direction with our kids so that we're looking at the kids that are immediately in proximity. We talk with the teacher about, is there a student that they kind of routinely partner with or spend lots of time with, and kind of get that information before we quarantine. But we haven't been quarantining full classes now for a while.
Getting better.
Yep.
Ready for motion?
Yeah.
I move to accept administrative team recommendations related to summer school safety protocols.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
I'd like to ask the board to set kind of a special board retreat work session date. I feel like we really need to kind of dig in a little bit to both the facility study, but more importantly, I have some additional aspects of the facility study that kind of does a little bit of showing options, for example, that the board might like to proceed with, and also putting dollar figures to those options. And so I really feel like rather than just a straightforward, kind of running through, it would be good for the board to be able to really dig into that in a little more relaxed manner. No action would be taken. It would be posted as a meeting, although it would not be live streamed, again, just as, to try and kind of have a little more of a conversational perspective to it. And so I'd like to recommend that the board sets a date for that, either mid-June, potentially into July if mid-June isn't going to work, but probably mid-June would be best.
Is this something where we're trying to pick that date today, or could you figure out a couple dates and then we kind of have a discussion with you what works, and then the consensus happens? Because I'm going to have to look at some things to make sure that
The only thing that is, I guess what I would ask then is the board to authorize me to do that. Typically, a committee meeting, checking your calendars, that's a little different, but setting an actual special board meeting, I guess I'd like you to make a motion to direct me to coordinate calendars and set a date.
I mean, I'm fine with that if everyone else is fine.
Move it.
Okay, I motion to allow Connie Valenza to work with the board members to set a date for the special board meeting retreat work session moving forward.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
And I'll contact Chuck E. Cheese, maybe
Good,
get a table.
good. Ew.
Do something like that.
Oh. Remember that?
So earlier this evening at the special board meeting, the board approved open enrollment approvals and denials for our students. And I wanted to give you a little bit of an update overall in terms of where we're at in open enrollment. One of the questions kind of was, where are these people who are requesting open enrollment? So in geography, kind of proximity. And as you can see, if you take a look at that map, you know, one of the difficult things about the Salem School District is there are subdivisions and areas where people live that are actually closer to other districts. You kind of take a look at the large number of Bristol, kind of in that area, very close to Bristol School District, when we're trying to kind of get at what are some of the reasons people choose to open enroll. So I put up kind of geographically where people are situated, the addresses where those open enrollment requests are coming from. And then I broke it down just to 4K, because again, tends to be when a student open enrolls for 4K, there is a tendency to continue at that school. If they start here in 4K, there's a tendency for them to continue here. So taking a look at those students and where they're presently living as they apply for open enrollment. Looking at our overall numbers, you can see this is presently open enrolled in. This is not, so for this school year, this is not what's requesting for next year, it's what we have this year. So we have a total of 69 students open enrolling into Salem School District. And likewise, we have 174 students open enrolling out of Salem School District. I would say we've closed the gap by a few students, not significantly. But I also would say this is a very unique year. It's a unique situation. We have students who chose to open enroll virtual because of the pandemic. There will be, as we talk later this evening, more students than usual requesting to open enroll into virtual settings. In some ways I was concerned that we might have actually more than we did have there. So it's a little hard to make judgments about these numbers, but we are, I think, slowly making progress on closing that gap. Looking this evening at our open enrollment applications, we have a total of 42 students requesting open enrollment into the district and 51 students requesting open enrollment out of the district. You'll see that kind of odd number 67, meaning the number of applications. A student can choose to open enroll to more than one district, so that's why you see that larger number of applications. Again, the one of focus, the area of focus we really tried to look at was that 4K. Again, kind of thinking in terms of long term, although not ideal, not a huge difference between the two. So we have 16 students requesting to open enroll in 4K and 20 students requesting to open enroll out of 4K.
How many people have signed up for full day 4K so far?
So right now we're at 51 students have signed up for full day 4K.
That's really good.
So we're going to be running 3 sections at least. We may be running one larger section with a team teaching arrangement. So you might have a special education teacher team teaching with a regular education teacher. 2 full-time teachers though in the classroom, which would allow for a little larger numbers. Because we do want to, in other circumstances, keep those class sizes manageable. But right now, at a minimum, we'll have 3 full sections of full day 4K.
Have you seen a large number of open enroll in for the full day, or has it been in district mainly?
So we have not typically had 16 4K students open enrolling. We've always typically been more around the 8 or 9. So I do believe it has had an impact. The question would be, so for example, on some of those open enrollment out, a couple of those actually have requested full day, so they may actually withdraw their open enrollment out. When you request open enrollment, either in or out, number one, you have to wait till the district approves those, and then two, you have until August, really, end of July, to make a decision as to whether you, in fact, want to make that move. So there are some students who may request an open enrollment out and then turn around and decide to stay. And of course, that's one of the things we're hoping for. But I did want to point out some little pieces of information on the side. Out of the 51 students who are newly requesting open enrollment out, 10 of those are requesting virtual. And that is an increase from what we've had in the past. I think, again, sometimes pandemic related, you may have had, for example, 7th graders who liked and did well in the virtual environment and have decided to open enroll out for that reason. Only 4 of the students in that 51 are students who presently or have attended Salem. So again, you want to take a look at what does that say. Well, if you had a large number of your students who were presently attending, you'd say, is there some sort of an issue that's causing that? And I think one of the other pieces that's interesting is that 22 have siblings already attending that open enrollment school. So they may be students who the student open enrolled, older brothers and sisters are open enrolled into that school. And so the family has made a decision that that's the school that they want their students to open enroll into. And it would be probably fairly unlikely once you kind of started that trend to make the change. So again, always kind of taking a look to see what we as a district can do to better meet the needs of our families. And that's interesting information to look at. Any questions on open enrollment?
And virtual students, they would be attending a virtual school, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're not hoping that there's going to be a neighboring school that's going to offer a virtual option.
There is definitely some leeway now with DPI in terms of, it used to be you had to have charter school status in order to provide a virtual option. There is some leeway on that now, but I think the vast majority of these they're open
Charter
enrolling to established virtual schools.
I know it's cherry picking our own numbers when I say this out loud. However, if you take those 10 students that are leaving, that we're just not having that option necessarily, we're actually, in essence, more in than out due to our programming than at that position. So I look at that as a very positive situation considering the years past.
Yeah. So. Again, there's still a gap there. I think we need to keep looking at that gap, but I do think that some of the reasons that gap exists are a little bit of a factor of our school district. Sure. And I think, having come from a different part of the state, this concept of K-8s being in very close proximity, where you have schools that are, just very short distances from each other, and they all feed into the same high school. It's a much more challenging atmosphere to work within than if you had, for example, a K-12 district that lead up into a high school. I think you see a lot less movement in those districts at that lower level. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So administrator reports, I'll have Marquez do his first, and then we'll invite the other administrators. I'm assuming they're around here somewhere.
All right, so as the lead-off administrative report, I will try my best to keep it informative but concise. So I did want to update the board on 3 topics. The first is our audit. So we've scheduled our preliminary audit for June 17th, 2021. And then our full financial audit is going to be over 3 days, August 9th through August 11th. And so me and my team in the business office are working right now to prepare to make sure we have a clean audit. So the goal is the preliminary audit, they're doing testing through the end of May. So, if things are in order, then that reduces the amount of testing that they'll have to do at the full audit. And potentially shorten that length of that full financial audit as well. So that's one of the things that we're currently on our plate. Additionally, we just got our insurance renewal quotes, and right now we're looking at and this includes property insurance, general liability, crime, automobile, cyber, umbrella, and workers' comp. And we're looking at about a 7% increase, and most of it is due to an increase in our property insurance, which nationwide property insurance rates have been increasing for a number of reasons, natural disasters, things like that. So that's where the bulk of that increase is coming from. And we also, I did want to point out that our workers' comp experience modification rate has decreased slightly, which is a good thing. And that's based on the number of claims and injuries that have occurred in the past and the corresponding costs with them. So you want that number to be lower, and that helps you get a better workers' comp rate.
Do you know that number right off the top?
We're at 0.70.
Okay, which is a really good mod. Did they offer a dividend?
I would have to double check.
Because with a mod that size and the payroll of the school district that we have, the way that you can offset further costs is by asking for a dividend. And if our history is pretty well and the exposure is low, it wouldn't be odd to ask for a 30% on the manual premium of our workers' compensation back in a dividend check to help the school district financials out. So if they're not offering you a dividend, ask them.
Okay, yeah. And we haven't renewed anything yet. It's just a quote, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that.
Sure.
And I will look into that.
And then I will say this too, just again, being an insurance agent, right?
Yep.
Property across the board is the second largest, if not sometimes the first largest increase next to commercial auto, mainly because there has been a lot of losses. Furthermore, expenses of materials have made claims larger. So that's 7% is a pretty fair number considering the property situation that's going out actuarially right now. So
Yeah, and talking with some of my colleagues around the area in the state, I've heard 15% increases, 12%, 20%. So when I got the 7%, I was relatively happy with that. But I will look into the
standard.
dividend.
Yeah, dividend. Ask for as much as you can. Say 50. Start with 50%. Seriously.
And Nick gets it out of the park.
And then the final topic I just wanted to highlight is looking at the current fiscal year budgets. Currently, I'm projecting us to finish with a positive balance, so that's a good thing as well. That I don't think we're going to have a deficit. And then with that positive balance, we do have some options, including a transfer to the Fund 46, the Long-Term Capital Improvement Fund, and then also maintaining our district fund balance of 15% per our board policy. And that fund balance helps with a number of things, including cash flow, so we don't have to short-term borrow, and getting better credit ratings if we do go out for debt issuance in the future. So, and those are the three things. Any questions or?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, I will step it off for a minute. I'll be back.
How's that first?
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Ryan.
I'm going to talk summer school this summer a little bit, and then just a couple other quick updates we have in really school-wide. So for summer school this year, new this year is we'll be offering 2 sessions of summer school. In the past, you may recall we had 1 5-week session, usually go from the second week in June to the middle of July. This year, we're doing 2 different sessions. Session 1 is going to be from June 14th to July 2nd, and that's going to be on an enrichment program. And then session 2 is going to begin August 2nd and go through August 13th. That's going to be your step-up program. And that's really focused on preparing students for the next grade level in a fun, engaging way. I think one of the things, obviously, with the pandemic in the last year and a half of kind of a not traditional schooling system is that obviously there's some learning loss there. And we obviously want to kind of catch those students. And we thought it was important to do that in August. And also that offers some of those students to also participate in the enrichment program. Because typically in the past, when we'd have our five weeks of summer school, if a student needed a little extra support in math or reading, they'd be taking some of those classes, which is great, but that wouldn't also allow them to take those enrichment classes. So this gives them the option to kind of participate in both. Right now, registration is open for session 1 of summer school. We have 10 different enrichment classes this year. Some of them include titles like Crafty Kids, Instrumental Music, Summer STEM Spectacular, Road Trip Across America. We also have a Minecraft class. We also have a Phi Ed class. So we've got a good selection for students to kind of pick from. Registration just opened actually yesterday. As of right now, or as of this morning, we had about 60 students already sign up, which is great.
Wow.
And super, super positive. And this year, another change is students will have the opportunity, they're going to register for 2 90-minute classes. In the past, it was always 4 classes, but we've just, to kind of reduce cohort mixing and things like that, we just decided to go with 2 classes. Myself and Patty and Dr. Valenza kind of worked through that a little bit, and so they get 2 classes to choose from instead of the normal 4. Information regarding registration for session 2 will come out later this month for families. Also new this year, we've always been able to serve breakfast, but breakfast and lunch will be made available free to all students this year. And there are no fees for summer school this year. Again, in the past, you might have some extra fees, for example, like a cooking class we've had, or even like a Minecraft class. We recognize that this year's been a tough year for families and things like that, so we're going to be covering all of those things for this year. So that's kind of the quick update on summer school. Any questions with summer school?
Staffing wise, are we good?
Yeah, staffing wise, we're good. Yep, we've got 11 teachers, right? And we got most of them are in house. We've got a couple out. We've got a couple outside teachers, but for the most part, they're all in house. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. The other 2 things, quick. Field day is this Thursday. We're hoping that the rain holds off. Right now, I've been looking. It seems like every hour. It seems like it's supposed to start at 3. Hopefully, it goes the other way even farther. We have 3 sessions. We have primary, intermediate, and middle school. And it's just a special thanks to all the parents and volunteers who make it possible. We had 150 volunteers participate for this tomorrow on Thursday, which is unbelievable, great response and pretty incredible. And all those came within probably a week. And so that's a big shout out to obviously Nicole, who kind of set that part up, and then obviously the Phi Ed team to make field day a success. Now we just need to hope the weather cooperates through that. That kind of transitions a little bit to 8th grade promotional ceremony, and obviously the weather there. Again, looking at that looks fairly good. There's right now 25% chance. So we're hoping that's going to be it, but that's going to be Wednesday, June 2nd, outside, hopefully in the bus parking lot. If there's inclement weather, we will go to the middle school gym. Families were given 2 sets of tickets. They were given 4 white tickets if it was going to be outdoors, which again, that's what we're planning on. And then 2 blue tickets to be used only if the ceremony is indoors. And so the graduation will also be recorded and uploaded fairly quickly after the ceremony to watch later that evening as well. So
Okay, so you can't live stream it?
we would be able to live stream it inside if it's inside, but we're not hoping it is inside. But because of the Wi-Fi and things like that, it wouldn't make it possible to do that outside. But it would be recorded and be able to be uploaded within an hour. And so yeah, we're just really looking for the opportunity to kind of honor those students, because it's exciting to be able to do that in a year. Last year we weren't able to. So
We're excited to try and do it outside. It does create some interesting challenges for us to do that, but we think it'll be worthwhile, because obviously we can have, then our students will have 6 people that they're able to have in watching if it's able to be outside. And we're hoping that the kids then won't necessarily have to wear a mask. So while they're doing it, because we believe we can spread them out.
yeah, so the thought is that we'll have all the student chairs 3 feet apart, so they'll kind of walk in. They'll procession in from basically the middle school locker room. They'll kind of walk in. They'll walk in with masks. They'll be 3 feet apart. They'll take their masks off during the ceremony. When they go on stage to receive their diploma, they will not need to wear their mask. Someone will be there to take their picture. They'll walk off and just kind of sit back down. So we're really looking forward to it, and really excited we're able to do that this year. So anything else for me?
Great.
Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you, Ryan.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Patty.
All right, I just have a few celebrations that I wanted to share today. It's obviously been quite a year, and our teachers are still right up to the end doing some really remarkable things. So this first slide is about 4K. As they've been planning for next year, looking at their full day program, they've been working really hard, spending a lot of hours building that, and they're already kind of experimenting with what's this going to look like, and pushing outdoors in particular. So our 4K students have been spending some time out kind of in the back 40 by the Prairie area and just doing some exploring, seeing what's out there. They discovered a caterpillar there, so obviously that was great excitement for our students. But we're really excited about how that program's coming together. In second grade right now, they're doing a collaboration and problem solving unit that's the teachers based on Survivor. So the students are broken into teams, and every day they're presented with some challenge. And they have to work together to create whatever the challenge is. So one of them was they have to build a kite that will actually fly, and they only have certain materials to work with. And the students aren't evaluated on the project itself, but on how well they work together, how well they problem solve, how well they learn to get along and work together. So it's been really great to see how all of a sudden, you know, they move into their groups and they're the kindest, sweetest children you have ever seen, because they know that that's what they're practicing at that time. So it's been really fun to watch.
So my oldest is involved with that, second grade. And it's like all he talks about. He like loves it. It's like the coolest thing for him. So
it's
good.
It's been really fun to see. Yeah. And then one more example. I could go on and on and on. I just picked 3. This is 5th grade. Had an author, the author of The Hopeful Hodag, who streamed in, read her book, and then answered questions to the class about what does it mean to be an author? How do you start writing a book? How do you take it from idea to publication? And as our kids are working really hard this year on the writing process, it was great for them to be able to talk to an author who has actually done the work. So really bringing real life into the classroom. So that's all I have. Just a few celebrations of the awesome work that's going on here.
Thank you, Patty. Hi, Judy.
Each year, DPI puts out a school report card that's usually presented to the board each year, and that really talks about the accountability of all students and how they did on their forward exam and what we're doing to really close the achievement gap. There's another report card that comes our way that's usually doesn't get a lot of fanfare or publication or publicized very often. And that report card is a combination of IDEA results in compliance as well as disproportionality. So the reason it's starting to come to light a little bit more is each year DPI has been increasing that threshold of what is considered to be compliant. It's gotten to the point now where many districts are starting to really start to take notice of this report, as some of the schools are falling into an needs assistance type category. Salem is one of those schools. I'm going to show you exactly what that means tonight and what we're doing about it. So attached to the agenda, you do have all of the reports. Again, there's one for IDEA, and that really talks about our results in compliance. So again, it's a long report. I'm going to show you kind of the snippets to take a look at. The first one is all about IDEA, and there's 2 different categories. One is compliance and one is results. So compliance is all about doing timely evaluations, for example. The results is how well our students with disabilities are doing on statewide testing. Those 2 numbers in combination with each other add up. Right now we're scoring at a 79%. In order to meet the threshold, you have to be at an 80%. And I'll show you how that breaks down. So here's all the different indicators that the state looks at under the IDEA report. So on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's a number of points. The max points you can get in each of the areas is a 2. There are some areas that are not applicable for our school. For graduation, for example, we're not a high school, so we would never be able to get scored in that area. So what I do is I go down and I look at those points, and obviously we're at 79%. I need 1 point in order to get up to that 80. So we look to see, well, what are the areas in which we can improve? So the two I'm going to talk about tonight are the indicator 3s, so that 3B, 3BR, 3CM, 3CR, and we're going to be talking about the 6A. So those are the areas that kind of stood out to me that is in need of improvement. So overall, our forward data in the area of reading, now I'm going to go back because this is 18-19. So this report kind of gets a little confusing because some of the data goes back a couple years and some of the data is live data. But for this particular indicator, they're using the 18-19 forward exam because that's the last one we took and the last one that was reported. So at that time, 39% of all of our students in Salem School District were scoring at the proficient range. For the state, there's a little bit of data missing at the bottom of that. You didn't, is it on slide 2, for example? Oh, a little bit of data missing at the bottom. So 39% of all students, however, I believe it was 12%, now I'm gonna go completely off the top of my head, of our students with disabilities are proficient. And they compared that number against all the other students in the students with disabilities in the state of Wisconsin. So in that area, we're missing a point. And then it's in our participation. They also require that all of our students with disabilities take the assessment. They can either take the forward assessment or the DLM assessment, which is the alternate achievement. In that case, we did not test 12% of our students. And so in that area that we did score a 0. And again, in the area of math, 46% of all of our students were proficient, and I believe it was 18% of our students with disabilities were proficient in the area of math. And again, we didn't test 12% of them. So those are areas right there that we're missing some points. You might say, oh, it's kind of hard maybe to get achievement up, but we can certainly make sure that we are testing all of our students. And so real easy, we could gain a couple points back in that area. Another area that we are gaining 0 points in is in our educational environment for ages 3 through 5. So this is where you're hearing a lot of our conversation around that early childhood program, between the early childhood program and the 4K. What DPI does is they look at where students with disabilities are receiving their services. So for example, if you have a child in 4K who's getting speech and language services, they look to say where are the majority of those services being delivered. If they're in the special education setting, that's where you get that 0. So really that encouragement to push in. So as Patty and I and the 4K team have been working together, we're looking at all different ways to make those classrooms truly inclusive of all students and all teachers. And so we can push in and deliver services like speech language and OT and PT in those classrooms in order to improve on this indicator. Then the other side of the report is called the disproportionality report. And there's 3 areas of the DISPRO report. The first one is identification, placement, and discipline. In all of these areas, Salem is exceeding all expectations. And so there's no areas of compliance on this side at all. Now, part of that, though, is because they do have to have a particular N size. You have to have at least 30 students in each of those areas in order for them to count that into the report, and many of our cohorts are small enough that they aren't getting reported. So even though for the disproportionality report, we're not hitting any areas of compliance, that's still an area that we do look at individually as a school. And I'll give you an example of that. So this is the number of male and female students. So the very far right-hand side, we qualified 105 boys in the area, in one area of special education, and 49 girls. And so we look at that and say that's a pretty big gap in that area. And across the bottom then I have all the different areas. And so we say, well, why could that be true? And one of the trends that we noticed is some of those disability areas where behavior is more of a factor, such as OHI, which is other health impairment, typically for students who are ADHD, we qualify more boys than we do girls. And so this is just a way that we take that data and start to break down and question for ourselves. Like, what are we doing different for girls and boys? How could we engage more boys? Well, how could we use more universal strategies in order to engage more boys? Do we hold boys and girls to different criteria? So these are just all internal questions we're asking ourselves. It's not part of our compliance. So when you have this category, or when you have received this designation now for 2 years in a row, one of the sanctions is that you have to start meeting with DPI and CISA 2, their technical assistance department, and start creating a compliance action plan. And here's where we have super good news, is that we are already part of the Research to Practice Inclusive Community Grant, or you hear us talking about the RPIC grant. Everything in that grant meets the requirements for the compliance report. So we've been way ahead of this. 2 years ago, we received that grant. We've been doing this work way before we were ever designated a school in need of any sort of improvements. And so DPI recognizes that. They recognize that everything they would be asking us to do, which is really look at the areas in which you're deficient and create some sort of action plan, we are doing it, and we've been doing it for a couple years. So there's no further action on our side besides making that report, sharing it with DPI, sharing our results with DPI, and of course continuing to work with CISA too. So that's the great news of this.
One of the difficult aspects of that is because of the pandemic, we actually did not do state testing last year. So it's always possible that there may have been some improvements last year, but because we weren't able to do the testing, we're not able to document that that occurred. We were able to do our statewide testing this year, although we also recognize we and pretty much every other district across the state is probably going to see some performance indicators in this next testing situation that, will bear some looking at and some planning around. But I think we're grateful that we're already kind of moving forward to address it, and are hopeful that our indicators will come through and show that we're making progress.
Like I said, many schools are in the same situation we are right now. The criteria used to be 50%, and each year they've been upping that by 10%. So 50, 60, 70, 80, and as that criteria goes up, you'll see more and more schools getting into the same situation. But if anything, it's just really forcing us to look at our practices and make sure that we're really meeting the needs of all learners. So what's next? You've heard us talking about several of these different areas of improvement. We're looking at our PLCs next year. We're really taking it apart and saying, what data do we have and how are we going to use that data? Are we collecting it just to collect it? Are we testing kids on MAP assessments, for example, just to test them? So we're really examining and looking at all of our practices. We're really looking at taking that universal approach into our instructional design. And again, we'll be working through a lot of that in our PLCs. And of course, our approach to early childhood. Not only are we looking at the all-day 4K, making sure that we can push in our services, we're also looking at possibly doing some play groups in the community to be able to meet the needs of all learners, not just the learners who have chosen to come to 4K, but those who want to dip their toe a little bit into school. That gives us an opportunity to really assess students before they're even coming to school. So we have a lot of things in action right now.
Patty, what do you see as the biggest challenge with the all-day 4K and special needs students?
I think it's just the instructional planning and making sure that we meet their needs. And so an all-day program is a long program for any student. And then when you take a student with a disability who may need more movement or might need more engagement, we have to make sure that we're not just taking our 4K half-day program and adding time to everything and just making it a longer day. We have to make sure that we're being very intentional about every part of the day. We're really digging into the play-based learning to make sure that students are engaged in the activity that they want to be engaged in, meeting them at that level, and then being able to deliver the services through the natural play.
I got said Patty, I meant Judy.
That's okay, I got it.
Sorry.
I think, so one of the things as you saw some of the pictures that Patty shared is that we've been talking a lot about what is unique and special about Salem School. Well, we have more land than pretty much any school around us, and really have an opportunity to look at some of that outside work of kids and looking at environmental practices and sustainability and some of those things, and really taking advantage of the beautiful site that we have. And it was so exciting to see our 4Kers out and about doing some learning on the fly out there. But I'm assuming that will become much more part of our 4K program And as we seek to maybe engage our male students a little bit more, might be an area that they kind of attach to. All right. Great.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
We're gonna be visiting the goats at Nick's place.
Good.
We can trailer them in if we need to.
Can't wait.
So I know we don't have any committee meetings that met, so we don't have any reports, and at this point, just yet, I'm not recommending. We will be looking at, I'm gonna be meeting mid-June with our policy person. And so then, as soon as I get some of that policy, we'll definitely have to hold a policy committee meeting sometime soon, and probably start talking a little bit in terms of building and grounds as we start looking at some of that facility data, so.
Double whammy.
Our regular school board meeting coming up Tuesday, June 22nd at 7 p.m. We'll be establishing a date for the special board work session, but that's all I have this evening.
Move to adjourn the meeting at 8:07.
Second.